Good morning, Year 10. Welcome to Wednesday's video lesson. Today we are going to continue with our focus on question 5 and improving our question 5. So as always, can you please make sure you have your language paper 1 response and the marked copy of that response, or the version on Show My Homework. Pause the video and make sure you have those two things in front of you now. Okay, if you're back, that means you're ready to move on, and you can now pause the video and copy down the title, date, and the learning objective. Press play when you have that done. Okay, now it's time for the do now. And today you're going to complete these 5 tasks based on this image. These 5 tasks are going to help you recap your use of sensory vocabulary that we looked at yesterday and apply it to a new image. This is a type of image that you might receive in a question 5. So pause the video and spend slightly longer than you normally would on a do now to complete this task, please. Okay, if you're back, that means you've got your 5 sentences. And again, there's no right or wrong answer with these sentences, so I will check those when you submit your work. So today we are going to continue looking at question 5, like I mentioned. So just a reminder of the question 5 that you approached in your assessment. And just a reminder of the mark scheme. Now, the sentences that you can see highlighted are linked to today's lesson. Yesterday we looked at vocab and we talked about the criteria in the mark scheme for content and organisation, and SPAG, that sophisticated vocabulary would hit. And now today for our sentence types, that will help you hit this comment in organisation about discourse markers, and this comment about appropriate sentence forms for effect in SPAG. So by improving our ability to vary our sentence types, we're going to be able to work our way up the mark scheme for each of these criteria. So why are we looking at this? Why do I think this is important? Not only because of the mark scheme, but also because of some of your question 5 responses. I saw lots of good content and ideas and language in your question 5 responses, but a lot of the sentences weren't varied. For example, this response here. The impulsive child was becoming sick with anxiety. He was shivering in his body as the laughs of the unknown creatures drew closer to him. His eyes began to fill with pure panic as he heard branches crunching under weight. Every second his palms grew sweaty and his legs shook as if he was in an earthquake. Just then yells, shrieks and yelps began bolting in his direction. The more the boy heard, the heavier his heart grew. All of a sudden he bolted to the swing, open gate, as footsteps began to approach him. So as you can see, when the student doesn't use fronted adverbials, every sentence starts with the, he, or his, which isn't very exciting. Same with this response. That evening, chills entered the unmarked location. The misty grey fog consumed the abandoned cemetery. The misty grey fog chose to hide what looked to be the onyx black sky. Instantly, the wind howled like a wolf and capturing every plot of land surrounding the cemetery. The circular gate, which looked ancient and particularly broken, gave entrance to the unmarked cemetery. It led to many paths, including the illuminated mossy green grave stone, which instantly caught the teen's attention. Entering the changed cemetery, the delirious teen cautiously crept towards the gravestone, eventually noticing the date, 1750s. And again, we have a lot of the, and it. Both of these responses have some really great ideas and great language, but the lack of variety of sentence types inhibits their responses. So how are we going to fix this? So what I would like you to do is copy this table. I will explain it to you when you come back from copying the table, but for now I just want you to get it down. Really importantly, if you would like to copy down the example column with all of my examples of the different sentence types, you can, because I think they will serve as a useful reminder. However, if you don't want to copy the example column down, you don't have to. So you can either copy all 3 columns or just the sentence types and your own attempt. Pause the video and do that now. Okay, if you're back, then you've got the table written down, whether the example one is there or not. So I just want to explain this column to you. On the left-hand side, sorry, I just want to explain the table to you. On the left-hand side, we have different sentence types. The first 3 are new sentence types that I'm introducing to you today, and the last 5 are sentence types that we've looked at before, but I expect you to use anyway. In the middle here, we have our examples. Let's talk about some of these together. So we have a distant sentence, which is similar to the more sentence, but we're just replacing the word more with a different word referring to distance. So the closer he crawled towards the ominous building, the further he was from safety and familiarity. Then we have adjectives at the start of the sentence. So beautiful and awe-inspiring, adjectives. The woman gracefully stepped into the event. Notice here that this sentence would just be a simple sentence starting with the if we didn't have the adjectives at the beginning. We then have a not only but also sentence, which kind of mimics our 3-idea sentence structure that we use for literature. Very similar. Not only did the whimpering send shivers up her spine, it also made him wonder whether his own safety was in jeopardy. Now, I particularly like this sentence because it allows you to connect ideas together. We then have the sentences that I expect you to complete anyway. We have a comparative sentence. Sitting next to the iridescent water, it seemed like it was home to a myriad of colourful fish. You could also do standing next to, it seemed like. Looking into, it seemed like. The more sentence, the more he watched the intense football game, the more he became anxious of the result. This was a sentence type that we did use quite well. As well as fronted adverbials. Amazingly, the pewter grey clouds parted to reveal a golden medallion. Again, we did use that one quite well. We then have different types of complex sentence. A lot of us can use a subordinate clause at the end of a sentence, but we can't use it at the beginning or the middle. So, for example, as he logged on to his ancient computer, he was greeted by a daunting error message. If this was the other way round, and the subordinate clause was at the end, it would say, he was greeted by a daunting error message as he logged on to his ancient computer. Again, the sentence would start with he, which isn't very interesting. And this is a different sentence structure, so it switches it up a little bit. And then we have the subordinate clause in the middle of the sentence. The boy, who was frail and as cold as ice, shivered as he slid into his comfy bed. Notice here that some of these examples do use the at the beginning of them, but the sentence structure itself is unique, and it's important to have a mixture. So what I would like you to do now is, inspired by the image in our do now, you can obviously rewind the video to have that in front of you. I would like you to write each sentence type based on that image. Obviously, you can look at my examples for inspiration as well. Pause the video and spend, I would probably say, about 10 minutes completing this table based on the image in the do now, please. Okay, so you should have now got an example of each sentence type based on the image in the do now, which is excellent. But most importantly, how then do we transfer this into a piece of writing to make sure we're using our sentence types for impact, for effect? So I am going to X out and I'm going to write a zoom in checklist based on the do now, the image in the do now, to use a variety of sentence types to enhance my descriptions. So let me just X out of my slideshow. And let me grab a text box. All right, so on the screen we have the checklist for the zoom out, and I'm just going to actually make it a little bit smaller so I have more room to write my paragraph. There we go. All right, so I'm going to use a checklist to write my answer, but I'm going to pay particular attention to my sentence types that I'm using. So my first step is to start the paragraph describing the character's position near the zoom in. So I'm actually going to start the sentence with a fronted adverbial. That's also something that I have to do in the checklist anyway. So I'm going to write slowly. The inquisitive man approached the focus of my zoom in, I'm going to choose the bed, like the bench bed thing in the middle. Approach the damaged bed that occupied the center of the room. Actually, we'll say like the stone grey room, make it a little bit more ominous. Okay, perfect. I've done that step. Now I need to describe 3 features of the zoom in. And I'm thinking that I'm going to use a not only but also sentence to combine 2 descriptions together of the bed. So I'm going to write, not only did the what colour do I want the bed to be? Maybe like rust brown. I like that idea. Rust kind of indicates that it's like, you know, like old and rotting kind of thing. Not only did the rust brown fabric on the bed seem as though it was torn apart by some feral creature. I don't know if you know what feral means, but it's someone's feral. They're like uncivilized and they don't act like human beings. Now I'm going to add, not only did the rust brown fabric on the bed seem as though it was torn apart by some feral creature, but also I'm going to describe the legs. I'm going to say that they're brittle. If something is brittle, it's hard but easy to snap. The brittle, and that again indicates that the bed is kind of damaged and run down. The brittle metal legs had thousands of minuscule scratch marks etched into them, which is kind of like, if something's etched, it's been like pushed in deeply and created a pattern. And then I need to describe one more feature of the zoom in. I'm going to start this sentence with a fronted adverbial. Even more worryingly, or maybe I can include some sensory vocab here probably if I talk about like the scent of the bed. I'm going to write the bed emitted a putrid, which is one of the words in our vocab table, scent like that of a rotting corpse. Lovely stuff. Very attractive. Okay, then I need to use comparative language. So standing next to it seemed, which is a sentence type in itself. Standing next to the derelict, which means like run down. Object. It seemed like it had an abundance of stories to tell. Ooh. Stories to tell about the horrors it had witnessed. Personifying the table there as almost being like a witness to crime. Then I'm going to do my final sentence, which should use an interesting verb to describe the character's reaction to the zoom in. Suddenly, I love a suddenly, the ghost white man, maybe, sprung backwards as he heard a rustle in the largest rip in the surface of the bed. Okay, so let's have a look at the different sentence types that I've used here. I've got a fronted adverbial, I've got a not only but also, I've got a fronted adverbial, I've got a comparative sentence, and then I've got another fronted adverbial. It's a bit short for a zoom in, so I'm actually going to add a little bit more detail, I think. I'm not 100% happy with it. So I actually just might add a simple sentence at the end to kind of create some tension. I might just put the petrified man froze. That's nice. And again, happy to use the word the at the end there because it's a simple sentence for dramatic impact. And then I'm going to add something a little bit more detail here as well. Not only did the rust brown fabric on the bed seem as though it was torn apart by some feral creature who was ruthlessly hunting for prey, but also the brittle metal legs had thousands of minuscule scratch marks etched into them, making the bed almost as unstable as the man's current state of mind. Oh, look at me go! All right, much better. So as you can see, that was me being very kind of like realistic with myself. I didn't feel like that was a big enough or developed enough zoom in checklist, so I went back in and added more, which is fine. So we have a variety of different sentence types here, like I just pulled out, but also I want to recognize the fact that I've still been using my color vocabulary: stone grey, rust brown, ghost white, and I've also been using my sensory vocabulary. We've got brittle, we've got the word etched, which is grey, we've got the word putrid, we've got the word rustle. So I have carefully here crafted my paragraph to include a variety of sentence types to enhance my descriptions, as well as a variety of vocabulary. And that's what I've produced. So now it's your turn. You're going to go through your question 5 response, and you're going to change 2 sentence types in each of your paragraphs. So 2 sentence types in 4 paragraphs, that is a total of 8 sentence types. Remember, you don't need to change every sentence that begins with the, or a, or he, or his. Some of them are fine. You need to choose the ones that you think that by changing them, you're going to make that sentence more impactful. So, for example, let's have a look at this one here. So I'm particularly interested by the 2 sentences back to back that use the word the. So the misty grey fog consumed the abandoned cemetery. The misty grey fog chose to hide what looked to be the onyx black sky. So I like that kind of developed description of the fog, but I don't like the use of the and then the straight away again. So I'm going to change it. So I've written, that evening, Chills entered the unmarked location. The misty grey fog consumed the abandoned cemetery. So I'm going to grab my purple pen, and I'm just going to do a little star. Imagine this would be the margin. And I'm actually going to use an adjective start at the sentence. So I'm going to write ominous and overpowering, comma. I'm going to write it seemed like I'm going to change the description of misty, and I'm actually going to put the pewter grey fog, and then ... because that's the rest of the sentence. And then what else do we have here that I could maybe change slightly? Instantly the wind howled like a wolf and capturing every plot of land surrounding this cemetery. The circular gate, which looked ancient and particularly broken, gave entrance to the unmarked cemetery. It led to many paths, including the illuminated mossy green gravestone, which instantly caught the teen's attention. So this sentence here, I would maybe switch the sentence round. So I would maybe write instantly catching the teen's attention, ... and then change the sentence round so it starts with a subordinate clause as well. Or they could keep it, it's up to them, but I think that it would be better if it was switched around. So as you can see, I've gone through this student's 1 paragraph and I've changed 2 sentence types. Now it is your turn to do the same thing in Purple Pen. If you don't have room around your question 5 response, you can do it underneath today's date and title, but make sure it's clear what part of your question 5 response it's linking to. Pause the video and complete this task now, please. All right, if you're back, that means you're ready to submit your work. Make sure that the subject of the email looks like this. And again, make sure that you submit your work underneath today's date and title, so the table, and also your Purple Pen corrections on your question 5 response of your new sentence types. So 2 things to submit in my email inbox. I look forward to seeing all of your excellent Purple Pen corrections, and I will speak to you in tomorrow's video lesson.